Detroit can't score a bucket in the last 5 points. They give up a 19-0 run to the Nets and lose their fourth game in a row. We're going to talk about that as well as some other things in just a moment.
Passing lane, skies a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. Before we get into today's show, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Really want to keep that push going for 1,000 subs and appreciate everyone that continues to tune in, continues to interact with the channel in any way that is. I appreciate it all, particularly with how unwatchable this team has become recently. If it could have gotten any more unwatchable, I feel like it somehow has. So appreciate all the love as always. Now, today, I don't have a whole heap to talk about on this game, but the Pistons, as I just mentioned, they lose to the Nets 103-113 in a game they led for most of, except for like the final 3 or 4 minutes. They failed to score a single point in the last 5 minutes, not a field goal, not like they did not score a point, no free throws, nothing. And the Nets go on a 19-0 run to win this one by 10. And yeah, just, you know what, little funny, I guess, story and like joke on me is if I feel like the Pistons are going to win, for those that follow me on Twitter or particularly on the Instagram, when the Pistons win, I generally put out this graphic and it will show like the top 3 performers with their stat lines, then like some highlights in there. And that I generally start preparing that with like 5 to 6 minutes to go in the game, just so I can get it out as quick as possible. And tonight, the Pistons were up by like 11 with 6 minutes to go. And me being a fool started thinking, oh, wow, crap. I better start getting this graphic ready because I told myself if the Pistons win, I have to put it out. Even if like, key players aren't playing, like, it's like me recording this video. I want to make sure I get as much content out because I appreciate everyone who tunes in and that kind of thing. So started making this graphic, and as I'm making this graphic and entering in the player's stats, it was like as I entered in each player's stats, I would look and the lead went from 9 to 7 to 6 to 4. Then they're down by 3. Then all of a sudden the Pistons lose by 10. And I've got this graphic half made, Pistons lose. And I just like had a laugh to myself because I'm like, this team just finds new ways to lose. Like I'm not actually whilst I started making that graphic and kind of felt confident enough that they were going to win, this team, honestly, they will just find any way to lose. Like, not scoring a single point in the last 5 minutes was brutal. And I guess this brings me to my first talking point around Detroit starting backcourt tonight in Marcus Sasser and Jaden Ivey. Ivey, once again, started this game shooting really well. He was distributing well. He didn't have a turnover tonight. In the first half, I think he had like 10.6 assists, but I think he scored 8 in the first quarter. The 3-point stroke was looking really good again. And then Marcus Sasser in the first half, he had like 12 points. He was hitting his pull-up jumpers tonight, or in the first half, I should say. And, they were a big reason why the Pistons held a lead going into the half. I believe, I'm trying to check how much they were up by in the first half. It was, sorry, just bear with me. The Pistons at the half held a 11-point lead, and they were up by more in that second quarter. And it was much to do with the play of Sasser and Ivey. They were kind of just getting where they wanted to, distributing well, particularly Sasser for like his limitations as a playmaker. I thought he made some good passes in the first half, but yeah, things were looking good. I thought, okay, the Pistons were barely missing shots for much of the first 3 quarters. Like that was kind of the thing that when I look back on this game now, like they shot 17 of 39 from deep on the night, but felt like they made 15 of those in the first 3 quarters. And that was what was giving them such a lead. And some of that was to do with good ball movement, but it kind of, now looking back, just feels like it was one of those outlier nights where a team like the Pistons shoot the ball really well. And yeah, after halftime, I mean, Ivy did a little bit in the third quarter, but Marcus Sasser and both of them really in the fourth struggled. Um, and yeah, like Sasser in particular just has a tendency, like in the first half, he was hitting those shots where he hits like where he'll take his man and like do 3 or 4 crossovers to get into a rhythm. He was hitting those the first half, second half wasn't hitting those at all. A lot of his shots were short. I'm not sure, like it just looked like he had no legs under him. He played 33 minutes. I'm not sure if that's something to do with that respiratory infection he had and just running out of gas. But yeah, he took some very questionable, tough shots. And yeah, he finished with the worst plus minus on the team, which, you know what, it really felt like, yeah, a lot of that's probably that last 5 minutes of the game where the Nets gone that huge run. But yeah, he was one of the main culprits that just couldn't get a good shot, couldn't, the Pistons just dribble, 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 lots of one-on-one play down the stretch. And that's why they couldn't score. Some of that, I mean, I think put half of that blame on Monty because, like, Sasser's a guy who needs to dribble to get into a rhythm to get his shot off, which some say is an issue. I think it's kind of a useful thing to have if it's dropping, but at some point, if as the coach, I just got to say to Sasser, either take him out of the game and put someone in there who can distribute better, or get the ball out of his hands, or just tell him move the ball. Like it just felt like there was no instruction there. Jaden Ivey only played 30 minutes, and whilst I was disappointed with his second half, Monty said in the post game that Ivy's battling and he's dealing with a lot right now. So he actually had a lot of praise for Ivy. And just he didn't say what he's dealing with, Ivy. So I don't know if it's something off the court, but I do know Ivy, like he missed games with an injury. So maybe he's not 100% fit, which I would kind of find weird if they're continually playing him if he's not fully fit, because it's like, maybe they're showcasing him for a trade because he does tend to play better without Cade in the team. But yeah, I'd like to think he's just alluding to JI playing through an illness or something. But so maybe that's why Ivy struggled in the second half tonight. But a bit weird, Ivy only played 30 minutes. So, particularly with how he was playing that first half, and Malachi Flynn just absolutely struggling to do much of anything since his 50-point game. So would have liked to see Ivy get a few more minutes, but maybe he's dealing with an injury, some sort of health issue that is limiting his minutes. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot more, to be honest. Like when you have Ivy and Sasser as your backcourt, you're probably not going to generate the most aesthetically pleasing offense, and it's probably going to be a lot of dribble drives, and just, each of those guys, Ivy and Sasser, aren't really ball movers. Once they get the ball, it kind of sticks with them before they make a decision. So, yeah, both, Sasser, I don't really see as much of a pick and roll distributor. He can score out of the pick and roll, but, and then Ivy's still learning to pass. He had the 10 assists tonight, no turnovers. So that's a good number, but it's, and I mentioned this 2 or 3 videos ago, like some of his passes, like, there's one in particular, I can't remember if it was in the first half or the third quarter, but collapsed the defense, did all the hard work, and then just threw like a pass to Metu, who was open in the corner, and it was like off target and went out of bounds off Metu. Like it's those little finishing touches for Ivy, which I've really noticed, to be honest, in the second half of the season, but maybe I was a bit blind to it in his rookie season and earlier on. But yeah, just like I feel like if Ivy's going to be distributing the NBA, forget if it's with the Pistons or that kind of thing. Like it's going to be of that Russell Westbrook mold where like you just drive relentlessly, drop off passes to your bigs or kick out the shooters. And he has the ability to do that, but just these finishing touches on the passes, I feel like it lacked even more of late. Maybe it's been something, like I said, that's gone on all season, but yeah, look, 10 says 0 turnovers. Hard to be super critical there. So moving on, Monty's post-game comments, I kind of just want to focus on this one where Amari Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press tweeted this out. I'm just going to pull it back up because it got some of the Pistons community pretty riled up, and I think at times Monty. Look, if I'm him and like your season, it's just got like there's only so much he can say anymore in these post game things. Like I personally never look into them too much because, and maybe I should more, but like I just feel like there's not a heap to gain from these. Like there is at times, but anyway, I'll just get into it. He said, "We competed. The talent level is what it is in the NBA. If you compete, you give yourself a chance. I thought our guys competed. That's what Pistons basketball as far as the competition is. And like that's not Pistons basketball tonight. Like, I'm sorry. I kind of get what he's saying because he was talking about the first half and how they looked, but like just using that phrase at that time, like after you've just failed to like score and just had such a horrific ending to the game, it's just the timing of things he says, I just think are strange, and clearly he's not thinking about, like who knows if he even looks at any of the stuff online, or I'm assuming he wouldn't care too much, but like, yeah, just weird comments, like, and then like, I mean, tonight he praised Ivy, and like as I spoke about, then he was praising Marcus Sasser's game, saying like, I told Sasser, if you're going to make a mistake, make it a hard mistake. Like, don't be like, what did he say? Don't be tentative or something. Like, I don't know. I don't know what he was going to say, but I just found that one about Pistons basketball like just strange. And then he kind of was laughing, talking about the Pistons back-to-backs and the schedule they've had this season, which, look, I think the Pistons had the most back-to-backs uh, of the season of any NBA team. So I get the frustration there, but I don't know. I would have liked to have heard more about, and look, maybe I missed it because League Pass, I don't know if they show the whole thing, but yeah, I'm not sure if I would have liked to have heard about how like the Pistons couldn't score a bucket in the last 5 minutes instead of just like the generic like we competed, we made mistakes. Like I just sometimes like I think Natalie Kerwin actually asked like, what are your thoughts on the collapse? And he didn't call it. He said that wasn't a collapse. Like I don't know, maybe just an admission that like I should have done a better job of like running a play or setting up the guys in the last 5 minutes. It just kind of feels like he just ducked that question. And, it comes back to like his lack of adjustments in game. Like, yeah. But it's been a horror season for Monty. I don't need to keep talking about this, but his post-game comments can be super weird at times. So, going to be very interesting. We've only got 4 games left. I've gone from I think I said maybe 2 weeks ago, I'm going to really try cherish these games where like, yeah, these last 4 games, I cannot wait for them to be over because I'm super nervous about this off season because I have no idea what's going to happen. But, if Monty's going to be here next season, I think we'll find out pretty quickly once the season's over, whether or not Tom Gores elects to keep him or fire Monty. So, oh boy, there's a lot to come, but yeah. Final thing I wanted to touch on was just my thoughts on some of the Nets players. You would have seen in the community notes or on my Twitter or even on Instagram, I put something out about Mikal Bridges and kind of what would you be willing to give up for someone like Mikal Bridges, he's 27 years old. He has 2 years, 48 million left on his deal after this season. You know, he's obviously had a down season compared to last season and particularly how he finished last season, but he's still the absolute ideal 3-and-D wing. Like he's the absolute kind of pinnacle of a 3-and-D wing, if you think about it. Like that's probably doing him a disservice, but like in my opinion, like I can't think of a better non-superstar like type of player to fit along Cade. I think at 27, 28 years old, he's the perfect age. He's in his prime. Terrific shooter. Like, not the biggest self-creation guy, but, he cuts. He does all those, like, complementary things that, playing alongside a guy like Cade would work perfectly. He played alongside Devin Booker. So, like, and he was like the third or fourth option with the Suns. So I feel like he would slide in perfect. He's played under Monty Williams. I'm not sure what their relationship is. I assume it would be pretty good though. So I feel like it's a pretty good match. Now, a lot of people said, well, the Nets didn't even entertain Jalen Green and picks at the deadline or over the offseason. I can't remember, but and like, so why would they entertain anything from the Pistons? And I get that, but at the time of that deal, Jalen Green's value was nowhere near where it is now. So, like, I think that Jalen Green that the Rockets were offering is a lot different to the one that we've seen in the past month or month and a half. And then I was actually surprised. A lot of fans not a lot because, I don't talk to the whole Pistons fan base, but there was a fair few who just didn't want him at all. Which those were the ones I found super interesting, but I just outlined them why I think he's such a good fit. Alongside Cade and Asar, to be frank. Like, imagine Mikal Bridges and Asar Thompson as your, 2-3, 3-4 combo. Like, the length, the defense is incredible, not to mention sort of the offensive side. So in terms of what do I think the Pistons would have to give up, I think they'd have to give up a lot. Like, and because if the Nets are even going to, after listening to some podcasts about the Nets' potential offseason, it sounds like if the Nets are even going to entertain giving up Bridges, it's going to be because they're going into a rebuild, which I think is quite obvious. But the issue with the Nets is they don't have any of their current picks. They owe them to the Rockets with the Harden trade. Sorry, I can't remember. Anyway, they don't have their own picks. They have to give them to other teams. So it's hard for them to rebuild until they get those Suns picks, which come, I think, later, like 2027 and onwards. So basically, I feel like for the Pistons to even have a shot at getting someone like Bridges, I feel like they have to give up. They'll have to give up their first pick of this draft. So, let me know, like, if you think that's a good idea for starters, but they'd have to give up this pick from the draft. I feel like definitely Jaden Ivey, and then probably like Jalen Duran. So that's like a lot. If you like think of like where the Pistons selected those players, it's half of the core four plus your top pick this season. I feel like that's what they'll have to give up to get into the conversation, just competing with other teams like OKC, and like because the Pistons, like, they can start to trade some futures, I think now, like late, like 2029 or something. But yeah, it feels like it would. I think, and I'm not sure if I would do this, but this is why I asked the question. Like, would you give up Ivy, Duran, and this year's first round pick? I feel like a lot of people are going to laugh and say absolutely not, but I think with the sophomore seasons Ivy and Duran have had, I think like that, factoring in that, plus like this draft not being very good in terms of top tier star talent, I feel like that the Nets would want those three for a British trade. So, part of me thinks like I'm beginning to come of the thought that like, one, I feel like I said it last episode, Monty Williams, if he's around next season, I feel like Ivy will be off the team. But two, I'm kind of starting to like be of the belief, like 100%, that Ivy and Cade just doesn't work. Like, and it'll hurt to see Ivy maybe go thrive at somewhere like the Nets, because I think if he's put on ball, he has a chance to reach his potential as a point guard. But I think what I've seen from this season, like, is that Ivy and Cade probably just doesn't work. And feels like Monty, with the way he coaches, and even maybe Cade and his camp, feels like they want to go more down the route of Cade just being maybe that heliocentric guy, or at least like just handling the ball a ton, which means Ivy's going to be playing a lot of off ball next to Cade. And, frankly, he hasn't been able to hit open shots alongside Cade, and he doesn't bring a ton defensively alongside Cade. So I just am starting to think that backcourt pairing might not work. Now, maybe you try it up until the trade deadline next year. I think I'd be okay with that if the Pistons make changes elsewhere to the roster. But yeah, I'm still super high on Jade, and I'm just starting to think with what we've seen this season, I'm kind of beginning to struggle to see them work together long term. So, and then Duran, I've just been really disappointed with his defense, and maybe I'm super critical there, but I just think because of Asar Thompson being on the roster, I find it hard to play those two offensively together anyway, no matter what, even in the future, because I just don't believe either will be good shooters in the NBA. So factoring the fact they can't really play offensively, and then JD hasn't improved defensively, that's just where I really struggle with JD. And he's another guy I could see him going somewhere, putting up big numbers, and Pistons fans been really, upset about. But yeah, I think to me, what we've seen this season, I just think Cade and Asar fit well enough together. And then I think if you could throw in a Mikal Bridges, and then you've still got a heap of cap space, you can really start to mold this team around Cade and Asar. And then a trio of Cade, Asar, and a wing like Mikal Bridges, all 6'6", 6'7" guys, athletic. You got athleticism in there, you've got length, you've got scoring ability, you've got a bit of playmaking across all three. Cade's obviously superior in that regard, but that's a core that makes sense. Now, you are giving up a lot of your draft capital and draft investment, but I can see that working really well. So I'm not sure if you would give up Duran, Ivy, and this year's first round pick. Sounds like a lot for Mikal Bridges, but I don't know, man. Maybe in a month's time, once this season's put to bed, change in the front office maybe happens, and new coach potentially, maybe my tune will change on the core four. But ultimately, I think all four are really talented guys. I just don't think they kind of mesh together. Maybe there's a coach out there that can make it work. That would be really fun. But I just think from what we've seen this season, yes, the roster wasn't great. Yes, Monty's coaching's been really bad. But, it has been rare that we've seen these four players play together and you can see a blueprint that works long term. I feel like we put a lot of stock in the core four plus. You've got to find this elite shooter that can also play defense at the 3 or 4, and it's those guys are so hard to find. And that you pay a premium for those. So you're going to be paying I just think it's a bit unrealistic to think there's this perfect 3 or 4 man that you can play with the core 4 that's going to unlock this whole thing. So I've rambled a bit. That's kind of my thoughts. I didn't even really get to Nick Claxton then. I kind of just made that about Mikal Bridges. But Claxton, I honestly didn't really notice him for much of this game until he had some really key blocks at the end of the game on Ivy. So he's a guy I've seen Pistons fans talk about. I think he's going to be quite expensive this season because he is one of the better rim protectors in the league. I just do get a bit worried about rebounding and him his physical presence overall. I feel like Claxton needs the support of maybe a bigger 4-man, which would just potentially make me feel like they're going to put Isaiah Stewart out there with him or something. I feel like the Pistons probably need someone a bit bigger at the 5. But look, yeah, let me know if you'd be interested in Nick Claxton. And I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on the Mikal Bridges thing. I had people commented on the community notes and that kind of thing. But yeah, would you, I guess, give up Ivy, Duran, and this year's first round pick for Mikal Bridges? Very keen to hear your thoughts on that. But we will be back, unless there's any breaking news. We'll be back to review the next game, which is at Philadelphia on Tuesday, I believe. So, whew, man, get this season over with. But thank you for the support as always. And Until next time, as always, go Pistons.